Hello, this is John Greiner with Basin Safety. I'm your safety instructor today. We're going to be covering a few different topics. We have accident, incident, investigation, and reporting, important topics in oil and gas and all industrial safety, fatigue management and heat illness prevention, and hot weather work. So a few different important topics, especially the hot weather work for this time of the year. I'm currently down south right now getting ready for a wedding that's going to be outside, and it is going to be a hot one. So I'm not looking forward to that. So this applies to me just as much as it does to you. So getting into accident and incident reporting requirements, starting right off the bat, every company has their own system, their own method of employing the reporting requirements when an incident were to happen. Now, first of all, we want to prevent them from happening, and we're going to talk about that in the upcoming slides. But just to note that your company, even if I tell you these, they may be different than your company. So it's important to understand what your company requires. And I'm going to give an example of a kind of a checklist to follow here in an upcoming slide as well. So we need to know what we need to do. So we need to determine action items as soon as an incident happens, or after an incident happens, like, hey, what do we need to do? And this should be a checklist. This should not just be, whoever has the best idea, let's get around a table and talk about it. I mean, that's good, but you also want to be like, hey, we got to make sure that we have, the pictures taken and the witness statements taken, and that we've contacted the correct, authorities if necessary, just to make sure that those things aren't forgotten. And believe it or not, I have worked with major companies, large companies, where this has been forgotten. And OSHA, or maybe that's not the name of the group, but in this case it is. I'll just say it's OSHA. They got very upset by not being contacted when they should have been contacted, and everybody kind of should have known. As well as contact information. What is the number to that group? I mean, I don't know how many of you guys have OSHA's number directly in your phone. I do. I'm actually not very proud of it. I don't know why I said it, but I do. But a lot of people don't have OSHA's number in their phone, right? Or memorized. Also, time requirements. How quickly should things get put out there? Is it 8 hours, 24 hours? We're going to cover that as well. And then comprehension requirements. So like, what data do we need to pull in, and what data do we need to understand and move forward? And so OSHA does have a requirement of 24 hours for a hospitalization, 8 hours of a fatality, and best practices in the investigation side. This again is going to be company specific, but honestly assess the 5 W's, or the 5 Y's as they call them, which is who, what, where, when, and why. And then also how sometimes is important. So there could be 6, but hey, there's an H, so we don't want to, put that. It just wouldn't be 5 Y's and an H. It's not very interesting. And then also who, what, where, when, why, is a process. So we start with the who, and then we kind of go from there. So the first step of accident incident investigation is actually preventing the incident from happening in the first place. Now, it's easy to say, typically if you're the guy that brings that up during the investigation, you are asked to leave the room because you're not helping anybody. But now that we're, hopefully before an incident's occurred, we can kind of honestly assess this. So how do we prevent it? What's going on? What's at the job site that could cause problems? Is there a work site layout that's not ideal? Are there trip and slip hazards? Are there things in our way or in our path that could cause a problem? Are there tools that we're using that maybe aren't up to snuff or aren't the right tool for the job? Is there stuff above us? Is there equipment and vehicles around us? Is there mechanical equipment that we're working with? Is there pressurized equipment and fluids, energized equipment? A lot of these are covered in something called the life-saving rules that's out there by the IOGP. You may have seen these out there. They're kind of gaining in popularity in a big way. But yeah, I mean, what are the things that could go wrong that we know hurt people, right? Very few people were hurt by cotton candy. So if you're eating cotton candy and you ask yourself, how am I going to get hurt? Probably not going to get hurt. Now, if you're dealing with a loader or an excavator, have people been hurt around these? Definitely. All right. Well, why did they get hurt? How do we prevent that from happening? Do people get hurt walking across location? All the time. Now, it's kind of dumb. Like, no one steps out of their truck thinking, I'm going to roll my ankle today. But it does happen. Why does it happen? How do we prevent it? That's really where we get to start. The question we have to ask ourselves in order to do that is, what can fail during mobilization when we're going out to the job site? Well, when we get to the job site, as we're setting things up, preparing for work, and then also obviously during work, what can happen while we're actually performing the work, and then lastly when we're cleaning up and demobilizing. So honestly, prior to the demob, kind of getting everything ready to go home, a lot of accidents happen as people are finishing up for the day. They're like, oh, I'm done, and their mind is already switched off, whether it's beer 30 for some people, or they're just ready to be home. They got something that's gonna, that they're looking forward to once they leave the location. Their mind's already on that thing. So for us working out there, that's something we got to focus on, is keeping our mind on the job. And really, when we're looking at what can fail, it's not just from a safety perspective. Like, I wish there was a good catchphrase for this, but I, to the core of my being, believe that quality operations equals quality safety. Like, no one's ever said, hey, Billy, man, great worker, hard worker, best worker I ever worked with, but he's in the hospital every week. Nobody says that. Like, doing it well means doing it safe. They're kind of intertwined. So really this simple thing is what can fail operationally as well as safety needs to be identified. We can't just think about things in a safety vacuum because it doesn't exist. Everything is operations related. So yes, we got to do our JSA and think about the JSA in terms of what can fail, not just let's write some safety words down that the safety guy will be really impressed with us about if he ever gets, if he ever even looks at this thing, but more so from a perspective of, hey, what's going to go wrong while we're out here doing this job, and how do we prevent it from going on? What's going to extend the length of the job where it should take 30 minutes, but instead it takes us an hour or 2 hours or 5 days? What's going to do that? Let's plan for it. Let's talk about it. Let's prevent it. And then if an accident occurs, so now we're getting to, okay, we planned, but our plan didn't happen exactly the way that we discussed it, or something changed and an accident or an incident occurred. What do we do? The first thing we got to do is assess the severity. A lot of people will say call 911. Well, it's like if Billy comes over to me and says, hey, an accident happened, and I'm like, 911, and I'm like, what happened, Billy? And he's like, oh, we dropped your sandwich on the ground. Sorry, man, it's all dirty. We maybe didn't need to call 911. So we got to, and then, very quickly, hey, what happened, Billy? John, my name's John, obviously. So John lost his finger. Okay, it's time to call 911, right? Like, all right, that's a 911 situation. Really, he has 10. Maybe not. He's got 9 others. No, just kidding. So definitely, we need to assess the severity, determine what needs to be done. If it is an emergency, if it is an injury of some sort, like, oh, John twisted his finger, right, and it hurts him a little bit. Instead of just calling 911 or sending him straight to the hospital, we need to know if our company has an emergency medical response plan or a medical case management plan, and typically we do. And Extreme MD is a company that does that. There's Axiom. A lot of people are familiar with that. This is their number. You can screenshot it, know it, and if you call it and they're not going to be like, well, you don't have an account, click. Now, if you need some help, this is a good number to call. And then if, again, someone needs first aid, they're going to walk you through it. If you are first aid trained, great. You can, kind of follow your training. But these guys, especially if it's on the line of like, does he need to go to the hospital? I don't know. I've been in a situation where there was a supervisor in charge and somebody had actually passed away, and they were wondering about whether or not they should call 911 because they didn't know if he was unconscious or if he'd actually passed away. So just a quick epitaph here. If you're wondering if you should call 911, the answer is yes, you should call 911. If that's ever a quandary in your mind, the answer is yep, call it. Worst case, you can call it. Now, again, if it's for dropping a sandwich, you might get in some trouble. But if it's, we thought a guy was hurt worse than he was, you're not going to get in trouble for that. It's better to have them coming than not have them coming. So some other things about, again, getting away from injuries now, but property damage. There's kind of a minor, this goes the same thing with injury, and we'll go into this in a minute. Minor to major. Then we have serious and catastrophic. So, minor is going to be minimal damage to equipment, like think a dent in a fender, right? A major is like, hey, we dropped that truck down in the ravine over there and it is done, right? Or we dropped something onto the truck, or the crane dropped something and it broke and that was $1 million. We're talking major, major to catastrophic, depending on what it is. Serious, we have a fire, explosion, or something that's going to cause injury if we don't fix it. And catastrophic would obviously be an event that actually there is a number, believe it or not, and typically it's right there around that $500,000 mark. With inflation, that was like $100 last year, so maybe that number is going to change, but typically 500,000 is the number. Same thing with loss of well control, loss of control of equipment, things of that nature would be in the catastrophic category. So injuries, we have first aid, minor, non-recordable, serious, potentially recordable, and major, which is definitely going to be recordable. First aid is just like what it sounds like. You have a first aid kit, it can solve the problem that exists, right? Minor, non-recordable, that can be something like, man, I tweaked my back, I can't really work right now. Maybe it's a previous injury, maybe it's, just takes some ice and he's good to go. Maybe he needs a night, of rest, that may be in the non-recordable. Serious, it's a little bit difficult to create scenarios because injuries are so vastly different and why they have the injury. If it's a seizure from a previous thing, it could be a lot of stuff going. They forgot to take their meds. I mean, there could be a lot of reasons that somebody gets sick or hurt at work. So stitches, broken teeth, broken bones, work restrictions apply. Those would all be recordable incidents. And then major is a hospitalization or work restrictions, etc. So with that, and then the catastrophic in this case is obviously a fatality. So again, it's good to have a plan. It's good to have like a step-by-step thing that you need to do. It's good to have some reminders there, like about rescue requirements, muster point requirements, leaving the incident scene alone, things of that nature. So for that, we do have these cards that we make. We actually have them out there for a lot of customers as well as ourselves. Hey, this is a quick response card to know what to do in the event of an emergency. If you guys want some, let me know and we can give you some. So incident reporting guidelines. Now, we've made these as well, and they're just a great resource for, hey, there's a one-page thing of what to do if there's an incident. So, we have immediate within, right away, within an hour, within 8 hours, within 24 hours, and within 1 week. Now, this is general. Again, different customers that you have may have different requirements, but it's a good idea to know like what the timeline is. And I want to give a shout out to Dan Griffin with Nesset for kind of giving me this idea and saying, hey, we want something like this so we can just see it. And so we were able to put this together and make it very clear with what you're supposed to do. Reporting timelines vary, but again, an injury that results in a hospitalization is within a 24-hour phone call. You need to let OSHA know. Fatality needs to be 8 hours, and just to let everybody know, if OSHA calls and asks for your OSHA 300 logs, you got 4 hours to send them to them. That's 4 hours, 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know why you got to get those to them faster than you need to report actually somebody passing away at the job site, but that's the rule. So just keep that in mind. So purpose and importance, obviously, especially when it comes to an injury, like you need to get on it now. Like it's not like let's wait 30 minutes and see what happens. Now with some things, again, it's difficult to assess that kind of in a theoretical sense, but a lot of injuries, blood loss, concussions, any sort of internal bleeding, etc. These things can take moments to turn from just normal, everything's okay, to potentially fatal. So within 15 minutes, 15 milliliters of blood loss rather within 30 minutes, that person's gonna die. That's it. After the heart stops, you have 6 minutes until expiration without CPR. Internal bleeding, if not managed within 6 hours, can cause fatality as well. So again, report them, take care of them, get this stuff done. Don't try to hide stuff. You're like, oh man, I'm gonna be. There's another guy, slipped and fell, hurt his back, was like, I'm fine, and then 6 months later is trying to get paid from the workman's comp from it. It's like, dude, you denied medical coverage. You told everyone you were fine. You can't, you can come back 6 months later, but it's not this, it's going to be very challenging for you because people are going to ask a lot of questions and maybe think that you're making stuff up, even if you're not. So serious incidents, we need to make sure, in any serious incident scenario, we need to get people out of there right away, right? Again, we're going to assess the severity, then we're going to get people out of there. We're going to take a head count and make sure that everybody's there. Arrange transportation of any medical, requirements that are needed, and then perform rescue if you're qualified to do so. And then a lot of times with rescue, we want to make sure that there's a buddy there, so we're not going into rescue by ourselves, which can, depending on the job you do, be challenging, but that's the requirement. So another step here, in the accident incident reporting is scene preservation. So we want to make sure that we leave everything the way now we're tempted to clean up, right? I mean, if you're a good worker, especially, at the end of the day, you clean everything up, you get it back to normal. In the event of an incident, you just got to leave it alone. You can take photographs if things must be moved, like if it's a dangerous situation, we got to move stuff. Make sure you get some photos so the investigative team can, kind of reconstruct what happened. You want to cordon off areas if necessary, again, depending on where you're at. Assess the people, get information. Now, witness statements, we want to get them right away, and I'm going to get into this in the next slide. But if people are like, freaking out and this is a shock scenario, don't be trying to take a statement when someone's like not mentally prepared or present, right? So there's definitely some tact to this whole process. And then again, it's okay at this point. This is what we call the information gathering and protection stage. So we're protecting data by not messing with the scene, and then we're going to start gathering information, which goes into the next slide. So witness statements, we need to make sure everyone on site, even if the person on site was not involved, they need to give a statement like, hey, I heard shouting, or I was over here, didn't hear much, then the cop showed up. Whatever it was, fine. We want to have data from everybody that's on site. And then again, with the 5 W's or 5 Y's, who, what, where, when, why, provide clear data without speculation. So it's not like, I think Johnny, left his meds at home. Like, do you know that? Like, we need specific, hey, I don't know what happened. I saw the thing drop. I heard screaming, and then I went to the muster point. That's okay. That's all that happened. Great. Write it down. Let's get some data. No speculation at this point. So once we get all the data, the scene was preserved, we got the photos, we got the witness statements, we kind of understood what happened. We're gonna look at some different elements of a company. We're gonna look at the procedures of the company. We're looking at the training that the guys had, the environment, and then the equipment that they were working with. That's it. So again, if we're talking about prevention, do we have the right procedures to prevent incidents? Do we have the right training to prevent incidents? Is the environment conducive to a safe and healthy workplace? And is our equipment in good shape to prevent an incident from happening? Typically, these things working in tandem together will prevent the majority of incidents. So keep that in mind. Take a screenshot, download the presentation from the link. Definitely get this data if you can. So elements of an investigation, we have again all these different elements, and then the last one is historical precedents. Again, looking at our equipment, is it cotton candy or is it a loader, right? If it's a loader, I'll tell you now, if you don't know, loaders kill people every year, typically by backing over them without a backup alarm at nighttime. So, but not always. Sometimes it's broad daylight and they just run straight forward over a guy, right? Loaders are heavy and unforgiving pieces of equipment. So yes, if we're using a loader, especially if you use one every day, it can be like, oh, I'm just hopping in the loader. Like, I'm hopping in a golf cart. It's not the same thing. We need to take those special precautions and recognize that this is a dangerous. Now, I know golf cart. Now, someone out there is thinking, oh, golf carts kill people too, which is true. So next time you're out on the links with your buddies, keep that in mind as well. But yes, we want to know, is this equipment or these tasks that we're doing dangerous, and what can we do to prevent that danger from becoming something we have to deal with? So reporting, lastly, if you are involved in the reporting side of things, and I put this out into the world, I probably don't even need the slide in here, but I put this out into the world to let everybody know that reports should be concise. They should not be overly wordy, as I can be sometimes in these trainings if you've been taking them for a long time. They should be thorough at the same time, meaning all elements are covered. We're going to clarify the 5 W's. Not like that because you'd kind of sound unprofessional, but essentially include them into the report. Assign corrective action items, and then avoid assigning blame. Now, typically, right, like let's say Billy shot a gun off at work, which has happened. I've heard of it happen. Believe it or not, I've seen it on an episode of The Office, but then I've heard of instances where it actually happens. Hard not to assign blame there. Where Billy, and if your name's Billy, I'm sorry, I actually got in trouble a couple weeks ago using this name in a training. But Billy, he got offended. But Billy brought a gun to work and shot it at the job site. Okay, well, yep, that's on Billy, right? We're assigning some blame. Not necessarily. It may be a little bit deeper, but essentially, the goal is not to tell Billy he's an idiot. The goal is to find out, why did Billy bring the gun to work, and are there other people that are about to do the same thing because of the some now that one's pretty out there. I probably killed my analogy there, but essentially, why did this happen? Let's figure out why and how. Again, the most important thing after an incident happens is the lessons you learn from them and understanding how to prevent it from happening again. And that's all we have for incident and accident reporting and investigation for today. Thank you. Now we're going to get into fatigue management. We want people to be at their best, and the way to do that is to make sure that they get some rest. So the reason we're going through this is purpose. The purpose is very clear: to make sure that people aren't fatigued at work, because fatigue can cause significant impacts to health and safety. So we want to this training. A lot of you are required to take it. It is not the most black and white training when it comes to clear line, because what's fatigue for one person and fatigue for someone else may not be the same thing. But the reason they designed this is actually because of the previous topic that we covered, accident and incident investigation and reporting, is that when they look into incidents and why they happened, oftentimes, well, and more recently less so, but it's fatigue's overlooked, right? Why did the guy do the thing? Because he was tired. He wasn't thinking straight. And if any of you have been on long road trips or worked 24 hours, 36 hours, 48 hours, you're not at 100 at the end of a 48-hour shift. You're not. It doesn't matter if you are extremely talented at your job. After 48 hours, you're going to be kind of a waste of a human. And so we want to understand that, the impact that it has, and make sure, again, that we prevent fatigue from becoming an issue and potentially an action item or a root cause of a serious incident that's occurred. So what is fatigue? There's this great definition. I love this about safety. There's actually a Polish dictionary, and you may appreciate this if you're Polish. There's an old Polish dictionary from 1860, and in it says horse. It has the word horse in it, like most dictionaries should, and it says horse, and the definition is everyone knows what a horse is. And you're like, all right, yep, okay, that's a great definition. And with some of these safety words, what is fatigue? It's like, dude, okay, we know what fatigue is. So I get that, but it is the feeling of tiredness or exhaustion. It can be physical or it can be mental. It's a message, candidly, to the body to rest, or from the body rather to rest. Like, hey, it's time to just take a break. And then it can be aggravated by a few different things. Lack of sleep or accumulated sleep debt are typically the main culprits. Medication can do it. Diet can do it. Stress can do it. A lot of different things can contribute to fatigue. The effects of fatigue can be, various. It can be inability to see properly. You're going to, start to get blurry vision, slowed reflexes and reactions. And again, depending on the type of work that you do, this can be detrimental and even, serious, extremely serious. It can cause you to microsleep, and you can have automatic behavior. Basically going autopilot for routine tasks, which can be dangerous, especially in like the manufacturing world, where you're doing the same thing over and over, and eventually you're replaced by robots from Elon Musk. No, you're doing the same thing over and over, and you're around heavy machinery that can harm you if you get too close to it. So, for example, that's a serious problem in a lot of industries. Some more effects here: inability to make wise decisions or plans. Not like bad decisions, but like you're like, I can't. And this is actually something that the business world, if you're into business, radio or books or anything like that, you've probably heard a lot of it. It's called decision fatigue, where if you're in a supervisory or a leadership role and you're making decision after decision after decision all day, a lot of guys like that, they go home and they don't want to say where they're going to eat. They don't want to, decide what they're going to do with the kids. Like, they're just done making decisions. This is a thing, and fatigue can contribute to it, and it can be a contributing factor to fatigue. Also, inability to solve problems or maintain concentration, decrease in alertness, awareness, and watchfulness, and inability to remember recent actions or observations, which again, for a lot of reasons, can cause problems in the workplace. Like, especially if remembering, where you're at in the process, what steps you're on, etc., can detrimentally affect the work or the performance of the job. These are important things to kind of keep in mind. So, obviously along with all those, so again, the definition of fatigue, everyone knows what fatigue is, fine, but there's a lot more to it than there's just the basic, what you see on the surface. So increased frequency of mistakes, inability to respond efficiently and effectively to rapid change, inability to communicate effectively, decreased ability to handle stress appropriately, and dramatic mood swings. Now, I don't know if a lot of you guys are sports guys, whether NASCAR, baseball, football, horse racing, whatever you're into. Take your star athlete, LeBron James, Michael Jordan. And obviously Michael Jordan's the better one, but take Michael Jordan, 24 hours without sleep, 36 hours without sleep, 48 hours without sleep, or a lot of interrupted sleep, or a lot of traveling, a lot of et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then put him out on the court and see how he does. Put him on a horse, put him behind a golf club and see how he does. They're going to perform poorly. You're not acute. Your mind is trying to shut down, and you're preventing it from shutting down, and that will just, kind of make your performance worse and worse. So, some behaviors that are a result of fatigue: more often sick or absent, resign from positions more frequently, have a higher turnover, and cause or involved in more accidents. Again, fatigue has been recognized more and more. It was often overlooked, but in recent years been recognized more and more as a true root cause of serious incidents and accidents. So, workplace behaviors. We want to make sure that we're working slower and need to this will be how they perform. They'll work slower and need to double check work more often. They'll rely heavily on coworkers and then avoid complex and difficult tasks. Now, I've worked with a lot of people where I'm thinking right now, man, maybe they were just fatigued. I just thought they were lazy, but maybe they were just fatigued. Now, I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek because, going up to somebody that you work with and being like, hey, man, I'm a victim of fatigue. I need to rest, and I'm going to go take a nap in the truck while you guys all finish this job. That's probably not going to go over super swell. But what if it's the truth, right? What if a person really is slow reaction time, not making good decisions, seeing blurry vision? I mean, that may be the reality, but nobody, typically, I don't know of anyone who's done it that blatantly, but no one typically is going to just come out and say that and then go take a nap in the truck. So it's a little bit, again, this is a little bit hard one to slice because the difference between the two, I think everybody's kind of generally looking for everyone to be lazy. We've all worked with people that don't pull their own weight and kind of look harder for reasons not to work than actually just doing the work. So it can be difficult to really line out exactly why somebody isn't doing their job. And typically fatigue isn't the first thing that we think, but it can have an effect, and that's scientific fact. So there are some individual health and stress levels that we can look to for understanding why people are fatigued at work, as well as the workplace safety culture, scheduling that exists, project type and length, and then workplace conditions. All these things kind of factor into fatigue in the workplace. So shift, if we've got guys at 18-hour shifts consistently, I mean, one day is fine, one day a month is fine, maybe even one day a week. But when you got guys working like 18 hours a day for 7 days straight, 6 hours off, including sleep and laundry and grocery shopping and any sort of, binge watching they got to do, it's not healthy. Also, fixed schedule. This is something obviously a lot of companies have moved to where guys have 12 hours on, 12 hours off. Same thing with shift rotation, having days off. Some companies have like 8 days on, 6 days off, which to me is the dream. Like if I could ever get that, that'd be fantastic. I haven't been able to find it in my day, but a lot of people do get to experience that. And then also, just adjustment to shift change. There must be some science out there that I've never seen, but these companies that have like 3 days on days and then 2 days on nights and then 4 days off and then 2 days on nights and 4 days. I've never been able to understand that, but even adjusting to that can create or cause fatigue to happen. Also, when it comes to being a supervisor, it can be challenging because having the right amount of people for the job, as I mentioned, isn't always ideal. And then also appealing to needs, preferences. This is great, but what if you appeal to two guys' needs and preference, and then the third guy gets all the overload, right? So he's working long hours, long days, all the weekends, and then these other two guys, they're getting, time off to do what they need to do. It can be a challenging thing to manage. Also, providing for people sufficient breaks and recovery time, right? Like, what we do at Base and Safety, if you've worked a long week or some long shifts or nights or something, we typically give you a reset day to be able to, get back on track, so you're not going right back into a full-time schedule after having, very little sleep for a while, because we want guys to be safe on the road. We want them to be attentive when they're out there and work. What I tell people is I'd rather have a sharp 50 than a sloppy 60, right? So making sure guys are actually, fully attentive to what they're doing. The other thing we have to take into account in North Dakota, and, operators aren't always great at this, is travel time, right? If we got to go 2 hours out of the way to a site, and then 2 hours back home, but we're not counting that part of the day. So we're like, oh, it's only a 14-hour workday. Yeah, but with 4 hours of travel, it's 18 hours. That can also have an impact on people's fatigue. And then time zone changes, bringing guys from Montana to North Dakota, which is typically a little bit harder than North Dakota to Montana, just because, you're waking up an hour earlier to get where you need to get to, plus the travel time. So all those things factor in. So we, as supervisors and as leaders and as schedulers, we need to really make sure that we're taking those things into account if we want to have productive, effective, and sharp workers out there in the field. So project type and length is another one. Making sure guys have enough time off at least every week, if you're not thinking about it on a daily basis, to take care of things that they need to do. And it depends on the type of work too, right? Like if their job is sitting in the truck waiting for something to happen, maybe not so bad. If they're, hammering it the whole time, busting butt, turning wrenches, breaking down pipes, building stuff, welding, etc., that's gonna have a different impact and toll on them. Workplace conditions. And the weather can be a part of this, as well as just site configuration, efficiency and planning, right? Like if you have to walk back to the truck every 10 minutes to get tools and bring them back, and it's just this nonstop back and forth, that can create unnecessary inefficiencies that kind of contribute to fatigue. So making sure that we have a good plan. Again, the home environmental factors and homesickness, we've definitely dealt with this with our workers that we brought in from out of state, especially when they're younger, or been away from home. This does have an impact on individuals' work performance. Workplace conditions, ergonomics, we can work with ergonomic chairs. For me, I need the heated seats in the wintertime to be comfortable in the field. I'm just joking, but it is nice to have. And then caffeine and energy drinks. I'm a coffee guy, I'm not going to lie, but I do recognize that there's kind of some diminishing returns at some point, especially if you're using caffeine to overwhelm the senses and trick your body into thinking it has more energy than it does. Same thing goes for energy drinks, right? You need to make sure that coffee is a nice to have and not a need to have in order to stay productive, because typically you're not as productive as you think you are. And also, having workplace environments and scheduling that promote alertness. Again, designing of the workplace, designing of the job, designing of the plan to make sure that we're efficient, and then obviously avoiding or limiting the undesirable environmental conditions that we see out there. Health and stress, medications are a big one. I mentioned this before. There's certain medications, they just sap your will to live, and they can affect your ability to stay alert. Medical treatments, sleep disorders, we definitely ran into that over the years. Individuals, health conditions and illnesses, long-term diabetes or hypertension, and then short-term things like cold and allergies. All these things need to be taken into account. And again, a lot of people like to push themselves. They don't want to be seen as lazy, and there is something to that, right? If you're the guy that's like 3 o'clock, like, hey guys, I'm tired, and you say that every day, you're probably not going to have a great relationship with your coworkers. And if you are that person, you have to recognize that you not pulling your weight definitely will have a negative impact, not only in your relationships with your coworkers, but also the workload that they have to take on, which just exacerbates the problem. But at the same time, if you're in a legitimate place where you recognize that your level of fatigue is not up to snuff and you're not fully alert or doing your job effectively, you do need to tell somebody, right? But then probably the most impactful thing I can say in this whole presentation, and we're near the end of this one, is fix it. If you're not getting enough sleep, go to a sleep study. If your medication's making you tired, switch it up. Like, do what you have to do to get yourself right. A lot of people just live in this status of kind of long-term problematic realities, and I cannot stress enough, get it fixed, get it looked at, get it worked on. One of the other things in addition to getting it fixed is stress. Like, some people are stressed. They got stress out of work. They got family stuff. They have fix it. Yeah, not every problem can be fixed, and I want to make room for that. But also I want to say, hey, if there's some stuff in your life that's really affecting you outside of work, you need to fix it, because it doesn't matter what job you have, it's going to limit your potential and limit your effectiveness. So that can be physical health, mental health, emotional health rather, and then also, these are related to issues at work and home. Relationships are typically the main cause and factor. Again, I just encourage, you need counseling, go get counseling. A buddy who needs counseling, is having a lot of issues, be real with him about it. And kind of going a little bit deep here, but the fatigue management one does go deep, candidly, is we need to make sure that we're people that are working on these issues and getting them resolved quickly, so that it's not this long-term thing. And I've seen it drag people down for decades in their career, where they just don't get the stuff fixed. And every job, they get a new job, and it's good for a while, and then it falls apart. So they go get another job, and it's good for a while, and then it falls apart. And these underlying issues don't magically go away. They have to be dealt with. So some symptoms of health and stress: if you have chest pains, headaches, indigestion, substance abuse is obviously one of them. Weight changes, mental health issues, sleep disorders, all these are a sign of health and stress out there, so kind of keep that in mind. Safety culture is another one. Don't penalize workers who need rest due to fatigue. And again, this is tough, right? Because it'd be easy to say, man, it's noon o'clock, I'm fatigued, I need to take the rest of the day off, and then they're out golfing, right? So that would be, it's tough. Versus somebody's like, man, I just worked 318s or 324s. Like, I need to get some rest. You kind of, as a supervisor, need to kind of assess that and not always lean into this person is lazy and trying to take advantage. Workers must be encouraged to report fatigue and be honest about it. You definitely want to make sure that, as a supervisor, you're doing what you can to prevent that from happening. We do not want to reward productivity over safety and health. Again, my perspective, my kind of mantra is that these two things can go together, but efficiency is a main piece of that. Also stress the importance of fatigue management. And again, a lot of this is about outside of work. It's not actually in the workplace. A lot of it can be, impacted from outside work. Also, making sure people know how they're doing, because if they're just if they're just spinning a gear and they don't know what it's turning, that can be pretty impactful over the long term. And then again, incentive programs should not promote behaviors contributing to fatigue. Like, this guy worked 120 hours last week, he's the best. Sometimes that's necessary, but if that's the constant, then it's going to create a scenario where people feel like they have to kill themselves in order to be successful. That may work for the short term, but it definitely will not make you successful in the long term. All right, now we're going to be covering hot weather work and heat illness prevention. So both working in hot weather as well as working with heat creating element in work that can potentially cause serious injury or harm to an employee. So heat stroke is kind of the more serious one, and the one that we really want to watch out for. So here's some infographic elements that kind of talk about this. I'm going to focus on the prevention first. So alcohol is really bad in heat situations unless it's, there's a lot of water. So if you're drinking a lot on a Sunday and you have to go to work on Monday outside, it's definitely going to create the recipe for some heat-related illnesses. Thick clothing can be challenging, so make sure you get that good light FR. It does change in rating as you go lighter, but sometimes that's going to be vital, especially in the summertime. Outdoor time or time directly in the sun, we definitely want to make sure we have protection of eyes and skin, making sure that we have some sort of sunscreen on. They say umbrella. I don't think we're taking a lot of umbrellas out here on site, twirling it around, carrying a pipe wrench, but water and making sure you keep your body temperature cool is extremely important. And signs of heat stroke and heat illness, rapid heartbeat, no sweat is a big one. Hot or red skin, dizziness and headache, unconsciousness should be a sign that something's not right. And then vomiting is actually another sign that your body's like saying, hey dude, something's wrong, we need to get it fixed. Outline, kind of covering this, we're going to be talking about heat illness including heat stroke, how the body handles heat, type of heat illness, and then risk factors, as well as prevention, emergency response procedures, and supervisory guidelines. So there is an OSHA standard on this. Actually, it's heat illness prevention applies to outdoor places of employment with heat illness potential, which is basically anywhere in the summertime, especially if you're now West Texas, New Mexico area, southern New Mexico. A lot of problems with this, especially with guys wearing FR clothing. Like, they have guys drop out, right? In the South, if you work in that area, you know they have cooling trailers, actually, as a part of work sites. You'll have a cooling trailer out there where guys can stop and cool off their body temperature, because it just gets hot. So we're also going to talk about provision of water, which OSHA requires, access to shade, and then local or company procedures for heat illness prevention. So this is something we do want to cover about on every year. So we like to do it around this time when it starts to get warm up, but isn't already kind of beating down on us. We talk about environmental and personal risk factors, importance of consuming water. Hydration is like your absolute number one method of preventing heat illness, period, full stop, end of story. It's the best way. That it's like a radiator needs water. Your body's radiating heat needs water to do its job effectively. The importance of acclimatization, common signs and symptoms of heat illness, as well as the importance of reporting signs and symptoms and emergency response procedures. So without further ado, let's cover heat illness. So some risk factors. We already talked a little bit about alcohol being one, or caffeine, but obviously temperature is the main one. Humidity, air movement or lack of, radiant heat, and conductive heat, working around the ground where it's hot. High intensity and or duration of physical activity need to be taken into account, as well as PPE and clothing such as thick FR or Tyvek overalls, things of that nature. So poor physical condition is one. If your body can't effectively cool itself down, that's going to be a problem. Age is one factor of that, as well as degree of acclimatization. Like when people, North Dakota, we love to make fun of people from out of state that are working in the winter and just having a hard time of it. But flip that around, I almost think that most of us from the north would have a harder time working in the south in the summer than the southerners have working in North Dakota in the winter. Candidly, maybe it's equal. It just, if you're not used to a certain weather, it is terrible, especially if you're working hard in that different weather to be able to acclimatize to it. Water consumption, again, the number one most important item in this whole thing. Some medications prevent the body from cooling down, so kind of keep that in mind. Alcohol, drugs, and caffeine. And then also, if you have an issue, you definitely want to take that into consideration before taking a job where you have to work outdoors a lot of the time. So the body wants to maintain that 98 or so degrees all the time. But as that temperature rises, there's this tipping point where the body can no longer cool itself. Just on the opposite, with hypothermia, it's the same, where it gets past a certain temperature on the low side where it cannot heat itself back up. And the way that it obviously cools itself down is it releases sweat onto the surface and increases blood flow to skin surface, which is where the heat is in. It's in the water, right? It's in the blood. And so it pushes that to the surface as well as the sweat, and that cools you down because it's towards the outside of the body instead of inside the body. So excessive loss of water, salt through sweat, will prevent the body's ability to cool itself down. As I mentioned before, headaches, dizziness, weakness, and moist skin, muscle cramps, mood changes, irritability or confusion, upset stomach or vomiting, all in unconsciousness, are all signs that there's something not working right with the body, and you need to take some quick action before heat exhaustion becomes something more serious, known as heat stroke. So this is the total breakdown of the body's cooling system. Sweating completely stops. The skin is hot, red, and dry. You're going to have some mental confusion. Consciousness is going to fade in and out. You're going to see some, blurry vision, etc. Fainting, seizures, or convulsions. In any of these cases, it's a fast 911 call. There is nothing you can do for that person at this point besides getting them to medical care that's going to have an effective long-term effect. Like putting them in AC ain't going to cut it. Once this point has been reached, it's like fluids and IVs and like serious intervention to truly care for that person. So in the emergency response situation, again, that's 911. While waiting for help, we are going to move them to a cool area. We're not just going to be like, well, not a lot we can do for them. We'll just leave them out here in the baking sun. No, we still want to get them to a cool area. We want to give them a small amount of water, because overdoing it, now its body's going to be focused on processing that water, not cooling itself down. That's not great. We want to loosen and remove clothing. So yeah, maybe get the person naked. Again, probably not. HR is probably not going to be in love with you, but you may have saved a life. Fan and mist the person with water. And what we don't want to do is freeze the person, right? We don't want to throw them in an ice bath, but you do want to give them a cool towel to their head. Again, what you're doing is essentially you're taking work away from the body from having to do it for itself. So, or ice wrapped in a towel to head and ice pack to armpits. Those are the areas where the body wants to radiate heat the fastest, and if it's cool on the skin, it's going to allow that to do its job a little bit faster. So we don't want to leave them alone without going to the hospital. If they're like, man, I just had heat stroke, can I go home? Nope, you got to go to the hospital first. So again, just like anything, accident or incident related to health or physical safety or anything, we want to prevent it first. And as I mentioned before, access to water and hydration is the number one. You'll see these urination, dehydration charts around, sometimes like too much, right? Like you go into a bathroom, it's like everywhere you turn, it's like above the urinal and by the sink and, underneath the paper towel rack and just everywhere. But it's good to be reminded that, yes, we do need to make sure that we're hydrated, and the color of the urine is a sign of that. So we want to make sure we're in that clear color range and not in the dark brown color range. So if you're seeing that consistently, you're definitely showing signs of dehydration. And so we definitely want to make sure that, when it's hotter outside, we're talking about 4 cups or 32 ounces per hour. Now we're talking a gallon or more of water that day while you're out there working. And that's a lot, but candidly, that's my goal in the summertime. Like I have a gallon jug of water, and my goal is to finish that thing that day. Takes a little bit of getting used to and building up. It's like if you try to do it on the first day, it's going to be tough. But as you kind of build towards it, and I'm kind of like a liter at a time. I just do a liter, do 3 or 4 of those throughout the day, and you're good to go. And that's kind of the recommended volume of water in warmer temperatures. Shade is also important, right? Getting out of the sun. That's vital. It doesn't have to be, anything fancy. It can be a tent out there. Those little pop-up tents are pretty good, like not a tent that you sleep in, but more like the event tent type thing, just a place where you can sit and have shade. Good idea to have some fan and some mists going on if you can. I mean, maybe throw a little lavender in there. No, I'm just joking. But definitely get some shade. It doesn't have to be an oasis, but it should definitely be somewhere where people can cool off. Supervisors are really the ones who are most responsible, because if the owner of the company is in another city or in an office somewhere, he doesn't know what these guys are experiencing. Like, you as a supervisor need to really take this into account and plan into your work the heat-related illness prevention if we're out here working in June, July, August, right? That's where in North Dakota, if you're down south, I mean, this can be 6 months out of the year or all year if you're far enough south. These are things that we need to take into consideration. So work planning, again, is the big thing. Like, what are the weather forecasts? What's the humidity? Humidity is another big thing. The thing about humidity is it'll almost make you feel like you're not thirsty for whatever reason, because there is water in the air, but your body's sweating just as much, if not more, when there's a lot of humidity in the air. So you need to make sure you're replenishing that. And so when that happens, we need to schedule breaks more often, right? We can't be working 6 hours straight when it's 90 degrees outside with a lot of humidity. It's not going to work, right? Like, you need to take more frequent breaks. Maybe it's once an hour and a half. And really, that depends on the team that you're working with. Different, again, age levels, physical conditions, etc., are going to change that. So talk to your guys, just keep an open dialogue about it and plan around it. Again, acclimatization is a big deal. Usually takes about 4 to 14 days to effectively acclimatize, and that's physically, but mentally it can take longer, and we need to make sure that we kind of keep that into consideration. On the opposite side, on the wintertime, I actually went to Mexico during college and during the winter. I had a great boss. He let me, literally go to Mexico for a year and keep my job in the wintertime and the summertime. And that was the preacher in the patch, oil patch that is. So I was out there in the wintertime working for him on Christmas break. And man, I did not do well coming back, because I'd basically missed winter. I went in the fall and didn't come back till Christmas. And I had a rough time. I mean, it was like the worst winter that I can remember experiencing. And it takes a little bit of time, but I went out there like normal, like, hey man, it's 40, shoot, throw on a hoodie and good to go. But my body was like, nope, not good to go. And so you need to kind of keep that in mind. Also, anything that the magic number here is 85 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, magic 85. Again, this is an ambient temperature that's higher than our body temperature. And the difference between 1 to 2 degrees makes all the difference in protecting ourselves and our workers. So in those instances, we need to have shade. We need to have access to, water. Some companies are like, buy your own water. My recommendation, buy a pallet. You can get 48 bottles of water from Costco for $4. We're not talking a huge expense here, right? So make sure there's enough water and that there's shade. And then we will kind of want to take those breaks and schedule the work and remind guys to drink water. And then when we have new guys out there, especially in these sorts of conditions, especially if you're an outdoor work type company, make sure you're watching them, paying attention, see how they're doing, and check in on them. Make sure that they're staying cool. Lastly, we want to make sure that we have, written procedures, and they need to cover all these things, right? Like the training, the access for water and shade, the plan for water and shade, monitoring methods for employees, and reporting signs and symptoms of heat illness, and all this, and then document the training, which we'll do here for you, but making sure everyone's going through this and understands the requirements. And then lastly, we want to have a summary, wrapping up the supervisory requirements. Again, they need to have the heat illness prevention training, which we're going over here. Be aware of your staff's heat stress potential. And again, this is individualized to your crew. This isn't like in general, like in the 70s, man, we were working 90 days straight in 100 degrees weather, whatever. That may not be true. That may be what you remember, but the past doesn't, relate specifically to what's happening today. Know your crew. Understand the heat illness prevention procedures. In North Dakota, there's not a lot because it's not our main focus. We're a lot more heavy in the cold weather one because that's more common for us, but still need to take this into consideration. Provide access to water and shade. Plan and manage work activities according to reducing that risk, and then be able to recognize any warning signs of heat illness, and then promptly respond to symptoms of heat illness right away. If once again someone's like throwing up, passing out, that's a 911 call. Straight up, no questions asked. All right, well, that about wraps it up for this month's training. Thank you very much for being a part of Basin Safety's training team. If you have any comments or feedback, please feel free to email me, comment on the YouTube video. You can click through. I really appreciate you tuning in. And as always, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.